It's a small town jukebox rock and roll. Yeah, like Coltrane playing when it hits your soul. Get the whole thing shaking when we hit the floor. Yeah, we're just getting started. Let's see where it goes. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. I'm feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. It's that old school drop top, won't let you down. It's that hush, hush, here it comes, talk of the town. Make your head stand up and your chin hit the ground. Get you all fired up, keep working it out. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. I'm feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer and you know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. I'm feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat.
Hi guys. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are tuning in. Welcome to the Speedsters live chat. This is a weekly live streaming on YouTube where we talk about topics that help you go faster and train smarter. And I'm your host, Louis Pang. I'm a cycling coach here in Malaysia. And today with me, I have two coaches, one of them in Italy and one in Belgium, which I have the privilege of meeting when we were doing our UCI Level 3 course back in last year in 2019. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Sander and also Frankie. Let me hit here. Yes, we have you guys online. Sander is in the middle, and then Frankie, we can't see you. If you can scoot over to the yes. Fantastic. Good to see you. Good to see you, Frankie. How about this? You guys were former World Tour cyclists, both of you, and now you are UCI Level 3 coaches, and you're doing coaching in your own country. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself? How about Sander? Would you like to go first? Sander, thank you.
Hi everyone. Like you said, I've been for a few years professional rider, and now I'm working in a sport medical center in Belgium with some other people, and we're guiding cyclists from young guys to professional guys, and I'm taking the coaching part for me, and I'm doing this now for 3 years. I really like the job, and it's something that you have to continue learning, and that's how we met up actually.
Yes, fantastic. We are here to learn. And Frankie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Francesco Masciarelli here, a coach, Italian coach. I'm also a former professional cyclist. Did cycling my whole life, and got a family that does this his whole life as well. You know, trying to learn stuff year by year and apply them to athletes. You know, we are keeping learning. You know.
Yes. Now I forgot to mention what we are talking about here. Today we want to talk about, our title is Bye Bye FTP Test. Well, not exactly that, because we want to talk about what FTP test is, and who is it suitable for. But we also want to explore together what other testing out there that we should look into. And that's why we have Sander and Frankie here to walk us through this. So let's handle this. If you're new joining joining us in this live streaming, every Saturday we have this live streaming going on. It's a long form. That means it's going to take about 45-50 minutes of your time to get through, to go into a deep dive on a certain topic. And we want to talk about FTP test. Is that the best test that we have? Is there something else that we should look into? Now, first of all, gentlemen, what is FTP test? Maybe you can walk us through. What is FTP test and what is it good for? Frankie, you want to go first?
Yeah. So FTP test, it's kind of useful for everyone because it's a pretty simple test to do. You can do it indoor or outdoor, so you don't need many equipment to do it. I mean, you still need a power meter. If you don't have it, you can extrapolate the power output in other different ways.
Yes.
My consideration is that FTP test gives you like a critical power that you can keep for a certain time. So it's good to see more or less like general conditioning, you know, but it's not really the best to apply workouts, you know, to write like a program down to improve, you know.
Okay, great. Sander, what's your take on this, Sander?
Well, I agree with Frank. It's an easy way to have like quickly a sort of value to see how the shape is of your rider, but it doesn't say everything. So it gives you a number, but what's also important is how this number is produced. So imagine you have it's to set your zone. It's important to know when you start anaerobic. So the number you get out of this test is a combination of a power output that you produce in your aerobic system and anaerobic system. But for your training zones and to understand your athlete better, you need to know when the energy systems are shifting. So with it's a good value from like it's a quick test you can do from distance. You let your rider do a 10-minute or a 20-minute all out, and you can see the progress through years. But the problem is also it depends a little bit the shape of the day, like good day, bad day, good legs, motivation also a big factor. But it's an easy way to know something about your athlete, but it's not the best way to understand how the energy system.
Sure. Now, the traditional FTP test is typically 20 minutes long. Whatever average power they get from the 20-minute test, we're going to deduct it by 5%. And theoretically, that should be the threshold power, the functioning threshold power of the rider, which means the functioning threshold power, FTP, is also the power that we can sustain for 1 hour. Now, if someone just do a FTP test and then go on a 1 hour time trial, so he did a FTP test at 200 watts minus 5%, it's 190 watts. And then that person, next week go on for a time trial at 190 watts, averaging for 1 hour. Would that be a wise thing to do? What do you have to say about that? Sander, can you start first?
It's a good guideline to know something. It's always better to have some number than starting just blind. But this calculation thing, it depends a lot from which type of rider you are. Like, for example, sprinters, maybe they can manage to do if they do a 20-minute test, but their 1 hour effort will be maybe a lot less than 5% of the 20 minutes, and
Yes.
with more like guys with a big engine, they lose maybe just a few percent of the 20-minute output. So it depends what kind of rider you are, but it's better than nothing. It's a good guideline for long efforts, for like triathlon or long PP.
Okay, cool. Now,
You know,
yes,
you know,
Frankie,
it's
go
like
away.
honestly, it's like an amateur way to do things. You know, it's not like professional do stuff in cycling. Because like that, it's like, okay, it's like giving you a number, like, okay, I will try to stay at 32 kilometers per hour all the time. It's like, you know, it's something really say arrangeable, like really rough, you know. But the thing is that in professional cycling, you have to be more precise, like especially like in a grand tour, you know, where energy are not all the same every day. They keep lower, you know. So this is why you have to mix some kind of testing. Me personally, I do the what you guys call the FTP test. I call it like a critical power test.
Okay.
I do it after doing a lactate test. And what I used to do is like, okay, to see like the efficiency of that rider at that intensity for that time, you know. So I can understand even the engine sides of the athlete, you know, because like Sander said, it's the first step is to see where the metabolism make the switch, you know.
Okay.
But after that, I want to see how big are those engine, like those zones, you know.
Yes.
How much I can stay there, how much I can stay at threshold, how much I can stay over threshold. So
Yes. Okay, so it seems to be that both of you are more inclined to look into the lactate threshold test rather than just looking at a 20-minute test minus 5%. To you, that is a good starting point, but if we want to know more about the physiology of a cyclist, we need to dive into lactate threshold test. Is that what I'm understanding? Am I understanding this correctly, guys?
Yes, even to apply workouts, you have to see. I want to see, like, you know, the graph. I want to see
Great.
the switch between, you know, 2 millimoles, 3 millimoles, how the body respond.
Great.
On
why don't we
intensity.
Why don't we get right into that? So you are proposing we need to look into a lactate threshold test. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to show you a slide of what a lactate threshold looks like. Typically, before we so Sander, maybe you want to walk us through. You have done a lot of this kind of testing in your lab. Why don't you walk us through very briefly how is a lactate threshold test conducted? The ladder, the step, and all that.
Well, an easy or quick way to have like first a good impression of your rider, how the body is working, is like with the step test where we start at 100 watt and then we increase every 5 minutes with 40 watt. It's not the most like maybe new test there is, but it's a good. It's a little bit maybe even old-fashioned, but it's a good way to have already quickly an idea of how which type of rider you have. You can immediately see if you're like more sprinter type or climber types.
Yes.
And you can really see at each power what the lactate production is. So that's really important for me to see where the shifting, like I said, that's the disadvantage of a traditional
FTP test. Yes.
Now you can really say like, okay, at 180 watts there was like 1.0 lactate, and at 220 watts we see an increase in lactate. So there you know that there is some shifting going on.
Sure.
And that's a critical zone, and then you have the second, like your threshold zone, where you see that the acceleration of the lactate production, and there you can like really see every step the lactate produced.
Sure.
And if you repeat this test a few times and you put the lines together in one graph, you can really see like at this power he improved, or the aerobic system is improved.
How about we get into the slides? Let's show we want to show you a lactate threshold slide, which is the result of a test, and maybe both of you can walk us through what we are seeing here, how to interpret the graph and all that, because data is only meaningful if we know what we're looking at, right? Okay, so let's look into that. So this is your lactate threshold test result. So standard, you have dotted lines in red, and then you have solid line in red. So I presume that this is the dotted line is your first test. The solid line is your second test. So the red line would be your BPM, correct? Beats per minute, your heart rate. And then the second, and then you also have the dotted line in blue and the solid line in blue. And that is the lactate production calculated in millimole, right? So, and you can see that at 90 watts, at 150 watts. Walk us through what power did you start at, and then walk us through what happened in this test.
Yeah, this was a test from a girl. So we take a little bit smaller steps, like with 30 watts we increase, and we started at 90 watts.
Yes.
First of all, like the first part, for me, you can see already a lot of things. For example, at the second test, the line stayed really flat for a while, so you know that there is like 0% anaerobic system. It's pure fat combustion there, so it means that the aerobic.
Okay, slow down. All right. So when you say anaerobic system, aerobic system, when we are using the aerobic system, typically the lactate production is lower. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in the beginning it should be like if you go 100% aerobic, there is like no lactate production, and you see this with endurance athletes.
Yes,
they can go really 100% aerobic without any. And if you test, like for example, some random guy you pick from the street, you will see even with the smallest increase or even the smallest effort, there's still a slightly increase of lactate because the anaerobic engine starts.
What are we seeing here? We are seeing that in the first test, from what we can see here, is at 210 watts. After 210 watts, we can see there's a increase in the lactate production. Now let's look at the first test. Okay, the dotted line. When you see that, what does that mean, Frankie? You're looking at the slides as well. So what do you see here?
So what happened is that we ourselves we always produce a little bit of lactate. The thing is that we are able to at our oxidative intensity, let's say that, we are always being able to recycle that pyruvate, lactate.
Yes.
What happened is that as soon we start pushing more, the energy.
Okay, Frankie. We got cut off a little bit here, Frankie. All right. So, Sander, maybe you want to. Okay, you're back. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We lost you for a little bit. No worries.
Yes. And so as soon as we start, pushing hard, we require more energy. So our cell cannot recycle anymore the lactate, So this is why we start accumulating the lactate. So, and there are many ways to read a test. It's not just about 4 millimole, but it's about say the shuffle, like when the lactate goes up really high, goes up. But you always have to consider. I mean, this is like a first step. Me personally, I used to stop the rider and see even how long it takes to go down the lactate. So even to see his capacity of recovery, And because like Sander said many times, it's not you cannot rely just on 4 millimoles. There are so many riders that can stay at steady 6 millimoles for a long time,
Yes.
without accumulate too much lactate.
Okay.
Other rider
Can we? I would like to interject here a little bit. So there's this 2 millimole, 4 millimole discussion going on. So 2 millimole and 4 millimole seems to be an important point in lactate production. Can you tell us why this is important?
So 2 millimole, okay, go Sander.
Yeah, Sander.
Go for it.
2 millimoles, okay, it seems like we have our guidelines that 2 millimoles, you start burning more burning. I mean, there is a combustion of more CHO carbohydrates than fat. At 4 millimoles, theoretically, you burn all sugar and carbohydrates.
Okay.
And there is like this switch of gasoline.
So at 4 millimole, it's purely using carbohydrate, no longer combusting fat.
Yeah, theoretically. Yeah.
Theoretically. And would that be the point that you think that is anaerobic? The anaerobic starts, or what does that tell you?
No, it's always. It's just not just you cannot rely on that number alone. You have always to see the graph, how it goes, how it picks up,
So to 2 millimole and the 4 millimole is a good point for us to see that under 2 millimole, it's we are combusting fat and carbohydrate. Above 4 millimole, we are typically combusting more purely carbohydrate. That's the
Yes.
theory, right? That's the guideline.
Yeah. Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
And after that, we should need we need even to see like a maximum effort to see even the maximum lactate production, to see even the efficiency of the cells to create an energy.
How about we stick to this chart and then you tell us what you see here. Okay. How about Frankie? You look at the dotted line, the first test.
Yeah.
What do you see here? Maybe you can walk us through. What do you see here? What do you notice?
Okay. I can see here from my experience that we can see that the rider didn't do a lot of quality workout. We see after 1.6 here? No, maybe it's more. No, okay.
Yes.
It's 210 watt is like already
about
3 millimoles.
3 millimoles.
Yeah, and after that goes really high. That means that she or he didn't do a lot of specific workout in that zones and area. We can see on the second test that it was
okay.
more
Hang on a sec,
and,
Frankie. Can we stick to the first line? What about the peak lactate production here? We can see that at the peak she produced about 24 millimoles of lactate. Now, what does that mean to you on the dotted line, the first test?
It means that his cells production is pretty. I mean, his lactate production is pretty high, and that means that she or he had a lot of glucose in order to produce that amount of lactate. So that right here we have like a really nice quality cell that can produce lactate. As soon you start to apply a training program with workouts and everything, you can see shift and modification on the graph,
physiology. Okay, Sander.
Yes.
You coach this particular athlete, right? Between the first test and the second test, so you prescribe training program for this athlete. Is that correct, Sander?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Can you tell us after the first test, the assessment that Frankie gave? This person may not have done a lot of anaerobic workout, and that's why you see the big spike happening. Big lactic spike happening at 210 watts. So would you agree with that assessment of what Frankie say, Sander?
Yeah, it's this was actually an example of uh, well, a good example that you can do with small tests already, a good idea about your athlete. So the test I did when we just started to work together,
Yes.
so immediately I could see I had an idea about how the systems worked, when they shifted. So then I saw, for example, that actually the aerobic system, or also the ability to recycle your lactate wasn't good enough, because you saw already in the line in the first test
Sure.
that there was a quickly increase of lactate.
Yes.
Also, like Frank said, like not a lot of quality work in the higher zones or around threshold, which you see that it increased quite quickly.
Okay.
So
So,
that's a good beginning pointing start from, if you get an athlete who you don't know and you put them on the cyclists or on a test thing, you can see immediately already, like, okay, this is what I have. What are the working points where we want to go now?
understand.
And there, after I think this was 6 or 8 months of work, you see already a good improvement of a lot of things.
So what is the difference between the first test and the second test? How big was the time gap, the duration?
I think 6 or 8 months.
6 or 8 months. Okay. Now, can you tell us briefly what kind of things that you have implemented that contributed to the change in the second test?
I switched it a little bit more to polarized training and do some longer but low intensity, because she never did this before, like easy long rides, to get the line more flat in the
Sure.
beginning, and this combined with sometimes a few threshold blocks, but also I'm quite a fan to do all out exercises, like 1 minute, a few times training, to really simulate the higher zones, because especially in women races, it's important to. The women races are different than men races also, so you have to train a little bit different.
Sure.
But
Now, what do you see in the second test? So Frankie has already walked us through the first test. What do you see? Walk us through what is the key point that you see in the second test, the solid blue line that we are talking about here.
well, first it's quite obvious that you see that the solid blue line is more flat, and it stays flat for 1 block longer, actually. So instead of the 150 block where it increased the last time, now it's steady till 210 watts. Well, there we see the first small increase
Yes.
of lactate. Also, the moment she starts to shift more anaerobic, you see that the lactate is more under control, so it doesn't go like rocket high from the moment she goes anaerobe. So it means also the recycling ability of lactate is higher, and she's contributing a bigger part of aerobe
Sure.
system for a longer time, actually. So where she shifted really quickly to almost totally anaerobe, now it's more a combination of both, and the recycling of the lactate is more under control.
Okay. Now, so what is the benefit of the advantage of doing this test, the lactate threshold test, over the FTP? Frankie, do you want to take this first?
So the thing is that, training is about stimulation, no?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Can
You're
you guys?
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
So I was saying training is about, small stimulation of our body in order to let him improve. We cannot give him like a big, a big amount of workout, because after we will have like I say like a regression. So this is why we need like a lactate test, and because we can see little by little how the physiology of the body change, the lactate production. For instance, let's say that I want to, getting back to the chart, let's say that I want to work a bit more on like to improve on the threshold. I will start making like 1 minute threshold at a certain amount of RPM. And after getting back at a medium low, in order to, to stimulate the body to recyclate that lactate that the body makes, So it's like, let's say I do 1 minute at, 4.4 millimoles, no?
Yes.
So I start accumulating lactate, and after that I will put like 3 minutes at medium low, that should be around 2 millimoles. So the body, little by little, production, try to recyclate, so I can like stimulate it a bit, like little by little to stay on higher zone,
Yes.
to train him to stay in higher zone.
So you are basically looking at the left-hand side of the chart where it says 4 millimole, and you draw a line across to where the dotted line is, and there you can find out at 4 millimole roughly, this cyclist was producing,
let's say 260,
220.
200.
Yeah, 220, right? About 220. So you'll be training in that area, 220, 230, 240, that kind of range, gradually, and push the threshold forward. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So this is why we need like a lactate test to do that. In an FTP test, we cannot work that precisely. Another thing is that, let's say, okay, I got those numbers. Let's say I have the 2 millimole threshold, 3 millimole threshold, and 4 millimole threshold, and 6 millimole threshold, no? And let's say that I want to apply those values. So 2 millimoles, let's say here at the second test, it's like about 220 watts.
Yes.
And the 3 millimoles here, it's like 240, 245.
Yes.
The 4 millimole, it's like about 260.
Yes.
And the 6 millimoles here, it's about 265, 270. Let's say 270,
Okay.
So if I want to see the capacity of the engine, I will apply some other critical power test, like, like 20 minutes at 245 watts. And I want to see the lactate, if it's the same with the test or it's higher. That means, for instance, if it's the same, that means that the athlete has enough glycogen and enough storage, like his engine is big enough to keep that amount, that intensity for a certain amount, and still does the same lactate. But sometimes after 10 minutes, the rider is starting losing power, After that, you see, he cannot keep up. The lactate can be much higher.
Yes.
Or sometimes if the glycogen and the glucose are lower, so the engine doesn't have any more energy, sometimes you see even a drop of lactate. So you have to understand always all the number. You have to study always all the test. Every test that you do, it's not a final imprint. It's not something final. You always have to learn, and you have to recognize some points.
Sander, what's your take on this? Good point, Frankie. Thank you for sharing that. What's your take?
Yeah, I totally agree it's a constant changing thing. Your rider is constantly changing, so you have to always try to adapt. But with all this and with the testing, it's really important also to know that the goal is not to make your rider the highest FTP, because races are not won by necessarily for the highest FTP. Like it shouldn't be like a goal to have the highest FTP, because it's racing is much more about just, well, if you would say time trial or triathlon, it's different, but pure cycling, it's not all about the highest FTP. Sometimes it's even better to, especially for sprinters, to have a good lactate production.
Yes.
Which pulls down your FTP a bit. So it's important to understand more. It's more important to understand, like Frank said, like what's going on,
Yep.
and how big the engine is, than try to focus too much on increasing the FTP.
Yeah, exactly. I think because just because someone can do a certain number in a 20-minute test, it doesn't mean that that person can do well in a 4-minute event. It doesn't mean that person can do well in a three-hour event. Because Frankie also pointed out about the glucose uptake. Some athletes they are weak in their hydration, in their fueling strategy. That is something that we as coaches need to look into to improve too. Not just pushing a particular number up, but we need to make sure that we have the proper fueling strategy. We have the proper progressive overloading on the athlete. We know what is their 2 millimole point, which is the where we are combusting a bit more fat, and what is the 4 millimole point, 6. Those are very good tips from Frankie and Sander. Thank you very much, guys. Now there's another test. Now we talk about one particular test where we can figure out our threshold power, our power, without having a power meter. We were discussing this. It's called the VAM test, and I would like to share it on the screen. Okay, it's actually the VAM test. Basically, it's vertical ascent meters, or vertical meters per hour. Frankie, you mentioned that you did this test before in your racing days with a very famous coach. Can you tell us about that coach and how did the test go?
Yeah, I mean, he was the one that came out with the VIM. It was back 2007, I believe.
Yes.
So we already know Michele Ferrari, and so he was like
Michele Ferrari, the guy that helped Lance Armstrong dope, and
yes.
Okay, so he came up with VAM, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
He's kind of a genius with this stuff, and he's a number guy, you know. He came out with the VIM, so we can calculate the watts that we can our body can output, you know.
Yeah. So this is the formula, right?
Yeah, this is the formula, but this formula is like applicable just for like a steady climb above 270 gradient factor, meaning like 7%.
Okay.
And we have to have like a nice condition. The reason why we apply this for like above 6, 7, 8%, it's because after the formula comes up better, and even like wind and the other variants are less effective.
Okay. So I would like to walk us through how we calculate with VAM. You know, how to use VAM to figure out what is your watts per kilo.
What we need is we need to know the length of the climb.
Yes, Frankie, can I show you what I have put here? Okay, let me do this. Okay, I'm going to show from a chart that I've got ready here. So we have this chart. There was this long climb here. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is Okay, let me see that.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Okay, so let's say we start the climb from here to here. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
Let me drag that. Is it showing up on the screen?
Yeah,
No.
but it doesn't light up the.
Yeah, it doesn't highlight the whole thing. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not highlighting the thing. Anyway, I have done a calculation based on this particular climb, and from Training Peaks we can figure out what is the length of the climb. Okay, let me do this. Let me come back here. Second. Okay. Just give me a second here. Let's get the slides on. Okay, so what we have done here is this. Watts per kilo is VAM divided by gradient factor times 100. So
yeah. So
what
in order to get the VIM first, you have to get first the gradient factor.
Yes.
That means that you have to divide the elevation gain you have to divide it for the length of the climb.
So the gradient that we climbed was 3.7% divided by 10. So it will be 2 plus 0.27 from 37. So that's how.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
you. Give me the elevation gain, like in meter. Do you have the elevation gain?
The elevation gain was 824.
824
Yes.
meter. And the length of the climb was?
Sorry, the length of the climb was 824.
No, in kilometer. Like, okay, this is the elevation gain, right?
Yeah,
884.
meters. Yes.
And the length of the climb?
The length
like 10 kilometers climb or?
Let me see that. No, it's hang on a sec. Now, is the formula that we see on screen? What is your take on that?
Yeah, in order to get the VIM first, you have to do you have to apply other formula.
Okay.
Because to get the VIM, you have to find first the gradient factor. After you find the gradient factor, you have to multiply the elevation gain per 60 minutes.
Yes.
Gets you a number.
So we got that
number. You have to divide it for gradient factor, and you get the VIM right there.
Yes. The VIM is calculated by the software in Training Peaks, so we got it already.
Okay, so it's
so the VIM is 824. The gradient factor will be the gradient was 2.7 percent.
2.7 to 70.
So if you divide by 10, that would be 0.37 plus 2, so it's 2. So the gradient factor that we calculated based on this formula is this. So it gives the rider 3.47 watts per kilo. It's slightly lower than the power that we actually recorded on a pedal, but it is quite impressive.
And it's because there the wind it's really high. It's really important, because there the speed that you make, you will have like a stronger headwind.
Yes.
That's why I have to push more.
Yes.
And this formula doesn't take that in consideration.
Yes.
Besides, if you do it like 7-10%, it's more reliable. It's a little bit more reliable.
Yes. So the key to doing this VAM test is you would like a gradient that is steeper, 7 to 10%.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes we used to do that, like to see if our power meter was working correctly.
So you trust Michael Ferrari's formula more than you trust the power meter. That's how much you trust Ferrari.
The power meter can makes you a lot of joke, and a lot of power meters are not reliable.
True. I mean, we are making fun of him, but he is a great thinker and innovator in the sports. The things that he has done illegally, if we put that aside, it doesn't mean that the science that he has put out there is incorrect. So we're going to separate the science from the crime that he committed. his scientific
Yeah.
contribution is quite fantastic. So guys, last thoughts about testing. What is your last advice? Your last words for our viewers here. So guys, if you're watching, if you have any questions, put them in the comment box below so that Sander and also Frankie can pick up on your question and answer you online directly. So guys, any final thoughts? Who wants to go first? The guy from Belgium. Okay, go ahead, Sander.
For me, the most important about testing whatever system or test you use is my advice is try to create an environment or a sort of test or that you can repeat without a lot of factors that are changing.
Yes.
So like I think, for example, in Frankie's sort of test, he would like to do it always on the same climb in the same conditions. For me, it's the problem I have is in Belgium we don't have climb, so I'm a little bit stuck with things. So, but the more you do the tests with the same athlete in the same conditions, you always learn something. So even if you would do it like 10 times or 2 or 3 times a year, you always learn something because especially with the athletes that you train yourself, you know what they did in between two tests, and then you know what shifted, and that's really important. And don't focus too much, like I said before, on a certain FTP number. Sometimes it's more important, like how the energy systems are working together. Is for me sometimes more important than a certain FTP. So don't focus on that too much, and just trust in your test. And the more you test, the more you get a certain feeling with. And I think it's
great.
It's the most important, I think.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Final thoughts about testing. What should we look at? What should we consider?
Testing is not about to see how strong we are, how fast we go. Testing, it's all about how we can improve. How can we apply workout to improve?
Wonderful. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Very good input from both of you. Thank you very much for spending time in this channel and walking us through your understanding and your take on testing. So for the viewers, thank you very much for spending 45-50 minutes with us this afternoon. Really appreciate that. If you have not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button so that you will be notified every time when we put a new content out there. So goodbye to Sander in Belgium and goodbye to Francesco in Italy.
Thank you so much, Luis.
Take care. Have a great weekend. God bless you. Bye.
Too.